Hey everyone, I want to talk about what OCD recovery is and what it's not, and maybe some of the confusion out there on, this is what OCD recovery means to me and why that's an understandable concept, but there really is only one definition of OCD and anxiety recovery, just like we have one definition of what sobriety is, and that means no drugs or alcohol. If someone that's consuming drugs but not alcohol, they're not sober, they're just not drinking. The definition of sober has one meaning, just like the definition of OCD recovery has one meaning. And what that meaning is, the absence of chronic anxiety, shame, and guilt. Intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, and urges have lost their intrusiveness and that bullet-type fashion. 99% of the time, you can't tell you have OCD, more than likely because OCD is genetic. It can rear its head every once in a while, but because you're much more philosophical, you have no compulsive behaviors and avoidance behaviors, you're much better at handling those little tiny maybe mishaps that might happen here and there. And it is really important to cover this because it's good for hope. It's good for showing people what the long-term outcomes can be. And I'm going to talk about my specific journey with sensory motor, my specific journey with body dysmorphia, where I am overall after starting to work on my journey almost 3 years ago, and everything else in between. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below. Let me know what you think about these type of videos. We always like some good engagement. I love speaking to people all around the world. I'm very fortunate to be in an opportunity where I get to do that. So, and if you're interested in our coaching and webinar services, we have webinars every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. UK time. You can email info@ocdrecovery.com, and we'll get back to you in a timely fashion. So when I was going through kind of the meat and the potatoes of sensory motor recovery, there was a large period of time where I was feeling pretty good, but there was a lot of moments throughout the day where I still was pretty much latched to my sensation. That's because the fear of that sensation being there was still prominently, decently high. I had no avoidance behaviors, no compulsions, and I wasn't really per se coasting because I was still actively trying to change my beliefs, actively trying to take constructive criticism, which is hard for many people, and seeking out people's and mentors of people who have achieved the things I wanted to do. I really looked up to Paul Little at that time. He had been working on sensory motor recovery longer than I had. I really looked up to Rob and other moderators at the time who had done the things that I wanted to do. And when I looked at them and what they were saying was, hey, look, you're in a really good spot, but it isn't actually OCD recovery. And I'm very thankful. Yes, there was kickback. Yes, I had moments where I was a little bit more abrasive about that, but I'm very happy I took that to heart and really took the constructive criticism better than I would have. Now, constructive criticism was something on OCD recovery. That specific topic was not something I took very well. I very much wanted to believe that OCD recovery was exactly how I wanted to see it, which was a cure, which was a problem because it is more than likely genetic. And although when there's no chronic suffering, that doesn't mean it can't be activated by some event in your life. I mean, I'm assuming if you were driving down the road and someone cut in front of you and you flipped the car and Erica was in the car next to me and she died, and I saw some really unfortunate scene, my OCD would more than likely like to really latch to that because maybe the opportunities to break down the very practical realism of fear of death right in front of me, and I wouldn't just handle it really well in that situation. But, the tools from Stoicism, Ellis principles, and everything else I've learned in my life are tools for life. They're not just tools for OCD and anxiety recovery. So, the biggest misconception is there's a lot of channels out there and a lot of people that talk about these stories called "This is what OCD recovery means to me." It means holding my child while I'm having panic attacks. It means going to work while being constantly triggered. That is amazing. That's great. And I don't want to take that away from anyone. That's awesome that you're going towards these things. But all in all, that's actually not OCD and anxiety recovery. That's going towards the recovery process. If you're still having panic attacks all day long, if you're still triggered on a daily basis, if you still have chronic anxiety, you could be very philosophical, but there's still a little bit more work to do. I can't tell you how much time I had to spend in that kind of like confusion stew of, is this working? Is it not working? Hey, I feel recovered. Wait, I'm not recovered. Oh, I'm in a really good place. Wait, I'm not in a really good place. Oh, I'm really good at not having avoidance behaviors, but not so good at self-reassurance and venting and all the other learning processes I've had to kind of take on. And again, that all came from needing an open mind on what I didn't know and what I didn't want to hear. If we're very closed-minded during OCD and anxiety recovery, it's very hard to learn. So let me give you the example of where I'm at right now with sensory motor recovery. Daisy's at the door right now, and she's been going a little crazy, so she barks. I'm sorry about that. Come here, boo boo. Over here. Come here. Come down here. Oh, she got a little. Oh, look at her up there. She's so cute. Our neighbors just got a new dog. Here comes Milo, and they were going crazy yesterday. Crazy. I have to fix the fence. She tore down one of the boards on the fence. So what does sensory motor recovery look like? I'm going to tell you exactly how it looks for me right now. No chronic anxiety, no extreme conditional life acceptance, no real long-term fears over any sensations. It's very important to realize that it's not about never noticing a sensation again, like breathing or blinking or swallowing or my tinnitus, but the fear cycle isn't there. It's exactly how it was before it became latched, but I'm much more philosophical now and much more accepting of life acceptance in general. If it came back, the big mistake I made was I would say to myself, I don't care at all if it came back. That wasn't exactly true. I would care if it came back full-fledged, but it wouldn't send me into an extreme panic, maybe unless there was like an initial reaction like it did all those years ago where I ended up in the mental hospital because I spent all my time running from it. Again, it is very important to realize that it's not about going backwards to who you were. You don't want to go back to who you were as much as you think you do, because if it was a continuum, if I took you in 2022 and just put you backwards in 2015 and say you became latched in 2019 like I was, you would just end up latched again. You wouldn't go back with the beliefs you have now. You would go back to exactly who you were in 2015 and you would end up stuck again. Also, wishing that we could go back. The past, I spend absolutely no time in the past. Never will I spend time in the past. I don't see any benefit to the past outside of if I'm making a decision in my life about maybe like a work career move or something. I'll look back and go, okay, did I try this in the past? How did that work out? But wishing I was in the past, I've heard many people recently talk about, I would give up everything to go back. If I was 85 years old, would I give up all this money to go back till I was 35? And I think I would say yes on that as well. And I think that's a valid topic. But I also think that is a slippery slope, because if you're talking like that, that means you're always going to be living in this place that you'll never get to again. That's an absolute zero ROI. There's no benefit in constantly reviewing the past outside of trying to make a constructive decision about, hey, look, this is what I was doing in the past. It wasn't working, so forth. Even stuff like I would prefer to be younger. There's not even a good preference for that, because if I would say something along the lines of, I would prefer to be a more well-read person, but I don't need to be a more well-read, that means I could still actively move forward and become a more well-read person. Something along the lines of, I would even prefer to go backwards to who I am, has no ROI, because that will never happen, ever, unless someone invents something from Back to the Future. But so there are preferences that actually are irrational, in my opinion. Like, again, these are very end stage philosophical things that take a long time to adopt. And again, I do understand why people would have that, I would trade everything and go backwards, but it doesn't make any sense, because it's a preference. Even at a preference level, it's something that could never happen. So it doesn't make any sense in a rational perspective to even think about wanting to go backwards, because it will never happen. So once I had that perspective, I was like, okay, what can I do now? What behavioral changes can I do now to benefit me in the future? And that was doing things I didn't want to do. That was making the hard changes. That was educating myself. I'm reading this book again, which is great. I was just talking about this with Rob. I haven't read Think and Grow Rich in years and years, so it's cool to go back and read the book with a new perspective, and you pick up new things. I try to advance myself in my career, but if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. I try to advance the way I look through lifting weights and fitness, but if it doesn't change, it's not the end of the world, and everything else in between. All those preferences that I now have are things that move forward in my life, but nothing that brings me backwards in life, because I'm never going backwards in life anyway, so I don't spend any time there. That took me a long time to really realize, because when you're stuck with OCD, you're always thinking about going backwards. But I implore you to think about the person that you could be in the future, a much more calm and rational person, someone that can handle discomfort a lot better. So, and I think that all that stuff is really, really important to cover. And again, these are major, major, major mistakes I made. So I want to reiterate again that there is one definition of OCD and anxiety recovery. If someone is telling you otherwise, that is an incorrect statement. I know it's difficult to hear. No chronic anxiety, shame, or guilt. You're much more rational. You will still feel emotions. Stoicism is a regulation on your emotions. I always talk about the pendulum. Most people is swinging in these black and white maneuvers, where a stoic person still has the experience of those emotions and they can tick a little further. You'll never experience anger again, but you're much better at catching it and bringing it down. You can always look at the people who really do understand philosophy and stoicism and the principles from Ellis and any other Greco-Roman philosophy just on the way they speak, the way they talk about their perspectives and how easily they're triggered. It's not that they'll never be have an experience in their life that might sway their emotions in an unhealthy way, but they're much better at problem solving, and not in problem solving in the way of like analytical problem solving, but they're better at like, okay, look, this is where I am right now. I can't fix the way I feel. What behaviors can I change? And that took me a really long time. Where I'm at today is light years beyond where I was. Sensory motor has no pull on my life whatsoever for over a year now. Body dysmorphia can still get me here and there. And I like to talk about the realities of this because, it is a very long process. A lot of the reasons why I kind of hindered my progress in many ways with my body dysmorphia is I didn't want to give up the identity of being a muscular, in-shape person, because that also brought this perception of intelligence that I would use conditionally against other people. And I'm much more accepting of not needing things to be a certain way, but that took me a lot of practice and a lot of being open-minded. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoy. We just missed it. Daisy is at the door. You can't see her. She's blocked right there. She's about to start barking at me, but unfortunately she won't be able to go outside because her and my new neighbor's dog have not, they did not get off on the right foot. Let's put it that way. And again, if you're interested in our webinar and coaching services, please email us at info@ocdrecovery.com and you'll hear back from us soon. Thank you so much and have a great day.